The Dallas Cowboys schedule just leaked, and what we're seeing for week 1 is absolutely ridiculous. But before we dive into why this Giants matchup has fans rolling their eyes again, smash that subscribe button right now, because we're dropping Cowboys news the second it breaks. And honestly, we need your support to keep bringing you this content every single day. All right, so here we go. The NFL just confirmed what most of us feared: Cowboys at Giants, primetime Sunday night, opening week. And if that sounds familiar, it's because we've literally done this dance 8 times in 15 years. 8 times. The league office is basically running the same script over and over. And look, I get it. America's team brings ratings. The NFC East rivalry sells. But come on, give us something fresh to start the season. What makes this even more absurd is that this is only the 3rd time in over 2 decades that Sunday night football opened with 2 teams that finished below 500 the previous year. Both Dallas and New York were disappointments last season, yet here we are again, primetime spotlight, same old song and dance. And while I appreciate the tradition of divisional rivalry football, there's got to be a limit to how many times you run back the exact same opener. Now let's talk about what else got confirmed and what's still being pieced together from multiple reports coming out of league circles. Week 3 is set. Cowboys travel to Brazil to face the Ravens, which has been known for a minute. So if you do the math and consider logistics, it's almost guaranteed that week 2 becomes our home opener at Jerry World. Think about it. Would the Cowboys really go road game in New York, then another road game week 2, then fly all the way to South America for week 3? That would be a brutal stretch of travel, and the organization isn't going to put the team through that kind of wear and tear right out of the gate. So expect week 2 to be at home, probably a nice welcome back for the fans after opening on the road, and then brace yourself for that international trip to Brazil, which is going to be a whole scene. And here's the kicker. Thanksgiving Day just got leaked. Cowboys hosting the Eagles, and if that doesn't get your blood pumping, I don't know what will. That game could legitimately decide the division depending on how things shake out early in the season. It's the kind of stage where legacies get defined, and honestly, Dallas has to win that one, not just for playoff positioning, but for the culture, for the statement, for everything this team is trying to build moving forward. Let me take you deeper into this week 1 situation, because the more you look at it, the more interesting it gets, even if the matchup itself feels stale. The Cowboys are 11-1 all-time in season openers against the Giants, which is domination, plain and simple, and if you zoom in on recent history, it gets even better. Dallas was on a 14-game winning streak against New York with a healthy Dak Prescott at the helm until that Week 18 loss last year, and even that game was basically a scrimmage where the starters played a half and then the coaching staff pulled them to avoid injury. Joe Milton got extended run. Nobody was really trying. It was a meaningless game for Dallas at that point, so you can't even count it as a real loss in my book. The last time the Cowboys genuinely lost to the Giants in a game that mattered with Dak healthy and playing the whole thing was back in 2016, Dak's rookie season, which feels like a lifetime ago. So if you're going off recent form and health, Dallas absolutely owns this matchup, and I'd be stunned if they drop this one on the road. But hey, it's the NFL. Anything can happen, and that's why they play the games. What's funny is seeing fans already start to predict scores and debate whether this is even going to be competitive. And honestly, I love that energy because it shows people are locked in even in April when we're months away from kickoff. Drop your early score prediction in the comments. Tell me if you think Dallas covers. Tell me if you think the Giants have any shot at pulling the upset, because I want to hear where your head's at. My gut says Cowboys win by at least 10, maybe more if the defense takes a step forward like we're all hoping, but we'll see how both rosters develop through camp and preseason. One thing I will say, playing on the road to start the year isn't ideal, especially in a loud environment like MetLife, but if this team has playoff aspirations, they need to prove they can win anywhere, anytime, no excuses. Now let's shift gears to something that's been a huge talking point around the organization, the running back room, and what it looks like heading into the season. There's been a ton of speculation about who steps up behind Javonte Williams, how the depth chart shakes out, and whether Dallas is comfortable with what they have or if they're going to make a move before training camp. Offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer recently addressed this when asked about the position group, and his answer was pretty telling. He said when the coaching staff does their job, they believe they can get the most out of Jaydon Blue, and that developing Blue into a legitimate contributor is a huge priority. He also mentioned guys like Deuce Vaughn, Hunter Luepke, and Malik Davis as players they're excited to see compete, which signals that Dallas is running it back with the current roster and betting on internal development rather than external additions. And look, that philosophy is basically the entire offensive strategy right now, running it back across the board. Dak's your quarterback, the receiver room is set with CD and whoever else steps up. The offensive line returns mostly intact, and the message from the front office is clear. We believe in what we have. We think these guys can be better, and we're not panicking. The question is whether that's smart or if it's going to bite them later, and honestly, it's a fair debate to have. On one hand, if the proven players don't regress and the young guys take even a small step forward, the offense should be really good again, maybe not top 3 in scoring like last year, but still top 10 easily. And if the defense improves, then you don't need to drop 30 points a game to win. That's a legitimate formula for success. On the other hand, there's always risk in standing pat because regression happens, injuries happen, and what worked last year doesn't always translate the next season. But when you look at the specifics, I don't think the Cowboys lost much. Jalen Tolbert's gone, but Ryan Flournoy already overtook him as the third receiver by the end of last year, so that room didn't really downgrade, and the same logic applies to the backfield. Dallas hasn't added anybody significant, which tells me they genuinely believe in Jaydon Blue and the depth pieces they already have, and sometimes you got to trust what a team does more than what they say. Here's what nobody's talking about, though. The Jaydon Blue we saw in that final game against the Giants might have been a preview of something real. I'm not trying to overreact to one performance, but 16 carries, 64 yards, a touchdown, and some real burst in vision on display. That's the kind of game that makes you think this kid has legitimate upside. Yeah, the Giants had one of the worst run defenses in the league, and yeah, he had a couple negative runs late when the backup offensive line was in, but the explosiveness was there. The decision-making was solid, and he looked like a guy who belongs on an NFL field. That type of big playability doesn't really exist on this roster right now outside of maybe some gadget stuff, so if Blue can harness that and add consistency, he becomes a legit weapon in the committee. The big question is whether he can handle all the other stuff, pass protection, route running, staying healthy, because those are the areas where he struggled early in his rookie year. But the athletic traits and the flashes are real, and I'm cautiously optimistic heading into year 2. Now, I know some of you are worried about what happens if Javonte Williams goes down, and that's a totally valid concern. If your starting running back gets hurt and you're relying on Jaydon Blue, Malik Davis, and Hunter Luepke to carry the load, are you confident in that? I think it depends on how much you believe in Blue's development and whether Davis can be a steady number 2, which he showed glimpses of last year. But the bigger point is this: the Cowboys clearly aren't worried, or they would have made a move by now. Follow the money, follow the roster decisions, and you'll see what they really think. They didn't draft a running back. They didn't sign a veteran. They didn't even bring in competition beyond a cheap undrafted free agent, which tells me the front office is banking on this group, and they're confident enough not to add bodies. Whether that confidence is justified, we'll find out when the season starts, but I respect the conviction, even if it makes me a little nervous. And crazy part is, while we're sitting here debating running backs, the national media is already trying to stir up drama with rumors that make zero sense. CBS Sports just dropped a list of the top 5 landing spots for DeAndre Hopkins, and somehow, someway, the Dallas Cowboys made the cut. Let me repeat that. DeAndre Hopkins, a veteran receiver who's clearly past his prime, is being linked to a team that just finished top 3 in scoring and has zero need at the position. The logic, if you can even call it that, is that Dallas spent most of their draft picks on defense, which is true, and that George Pickens signed his franchise tag, so maybe he gets traded. I'm not even kidding. That's the actual reasoning, and it's the laziest attempt at generating clicks I've seen in a minute. Why would Pickens sign the tag if he had no intention of playing on it? You sign it because you're either about to get a long-term deal done, which didn't happen, or you're showing up to play, period. The idea that signing the tag suddenly makes him more likely to be traded is nonsense. He could have been traded before. The tag didn't change that dynamic at all. But here's what nobody is saying, even if you ignore the Pickens nonsense. Does DeAndre Hopkins even make sense for this roster? Let's be real, the production has fallen off a cliff. He's bounced around 3 teams in 2 years. His combined yards during that stretch were less than what he did in Tennessee a couple seasons ago. And while some of that is scheme and quarterback play, at some point you got to look at the player himself. I'm willing to say it. Ryan Flournoy was better last year. And yeah, I know that's comparing different situations, different offenses, different everything. But Flournoy put up almost 500 yards as the third receiver, and he's only going to get better. Hopkins at this stage of his career is probably your 4th option at best. And at that point, why even add him? Your 4th receiver is usually a special teams contributor or a young developmental guy you're stashing for the future. Hopkins is neither, so what's the point? Plus, let's not forget Dallas passed on him years ago, and he was so upset about it that he publicly said he'd never play for the Cowboys, which is hilarious because he was literally asking to join them at the time. So, no, I don't buy this rumor for a second, and unless something wild happens, like a major injury, there's no reason to revisit it. Would you want DeAndre Hopkins on this team? sound off in the comments and tell me yes or no and why, because I'm curious if there's an angle I'm missing, but from where I'm sitting, this feels like a non-starter. The receiver room is stacked with CeeDee Lamb. You've got Brandon Cooks if he stays healthy. Flournoy is ascending. Jalen Brooks showed flashes, and there's competition throughout camp for that 4th and 5th spot. Adding a 33-year-old veteran who's declined for 2 straight years doesn't move the needle, especially when you consider the cap space and the fact that this team has way bigger needs on defense. The front office clearly agrees because they haven't shown any interest, and I trust their evaluation on this one. Hopkins was incredible in his prime, one of the best route runners and hands in the league, but that version is gone, and chasing nostalgia rarely works out in this league. Let me bring this all together because there's a bigger picture here that connects the schedule, the running back room, and these random receiver rumors. The Cowboys are betting on continuity, they're betting on development, and they're betting that the core they built last year can take another step without major external additions. And that's a risky strategy, but it's also the reality of the salary cap era. You can't remake your roster every offseason. You have to trust your evaluations and let young players grow. The schedule sets up with some tough early tests. The running back situation requires Jaydon Blue to prove he's more than just a flash, and the media is going to keep throwing wild rumors at this team because that's what happens when you're the Dallas Cowboys. But if you cut through the noise, this roster has the talent to compete. The coaching staff believes in what they have, and the pressure is on everyone to deliver because Jerry Jones isn't getting any younger and the window is now. So here's my final take. I like the schedule even if week 1 feels repetitive. I'm cautiously optimistic about the backfield if Blue develops, and I'm completely out on the DeAndre Hopkins talk unless something drastic changes. This team needs to focus on defense, stay healthy on offense, and prove they can win meaningful games in January. Everything else is just distraction. If you made it this far, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're grinding every day to bring you the realest Cowboys content, and we're so close to 250,000. Your support means everything. Now, drop a comment and tell me, are you confident in this running back room? Do you think Dallas wins week 1 on the road? And would you take a flyer on Hopkins, or is that a hard pass? Let's get a conversation going because I love hearing what you all think, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's ride.